Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the On the Clock show with me, Ethan Belchetz, and my friend Anthony from the Prospect Dawn. We have a packed episode today where we will be talking about the prospect from both the Habs and the Hawks organization, and also take a look at Elite Prospect Top 32. And to do that, we have invited the man itself, David St. Louis. Thanks for coming on the show, and how are you doing today?
I'm really great. Thank you for having me.
And you, Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm really great. Obviously, we have a lot of things to talk about because the Blackhawks just have the best pool in the entire NHL. But you know, things are going well. There's so much hockey to be watched right now, and things are going well. I know that everyone's pretty excited. So, how is everybody else doing in the comment section below? Please comment.
All right. Also, I wanted to know how's the project going? What's up with draft prospect hockey?
Yeah, we are absolutely loading the boat on features this year for the Mock Draft Simulator. We have the Mock Draft Simulator Pro as well, and you guys definitely should check both of those out, as well as the creator rankings. We have some incredible creator scouts and content creators that have been putting their rankings on the website. So there's the likes of Stephen Ellis, like me, Blue Chip Prospect, NHL Draft Pros, who has an incredible following on YouTube, and he's awesome. We do a bi-weekly or bi-monthly podcast together. And then I have a new podcast coming out with Colton Davies from Daily Faceoff and Elite Prospects that is going to be showcasing a ton of different, like, just players, media people. So you guys definitely need to check that out. I think we're getting a really enormous guest to come on for the first episode, but definitely check that out. But that's it.
That's cool. The Prospect Dawn is on fire. All right. So let's start this up with the top 32. And Anthony, I'll let you fly with this one.
Yeah. So obviously, Elite Prospects has dropped their top 32. And I wanted to get your opinion, David, on what was the conversation like? And were there some people that you kind of wanted higher that couldn't go in those positions? And like, who was the name that you guys fought over the most there?
There were three of them, actually, and it was pretty violent, I guess. Especially when it comes to one of those prospects, which is Albert Smits, who's playing in Liga this season, a defenseman. He's left-handed, I think, 6'3", a really great skater. The issue with him is that he's a bit chaotic right now. So when you watch him, you either have a really great viewing or one where you question his decision-making and the way he operates on the ice. But the tool package is super, super fun and really projectable to the NHL. So I guess as the season goes on, he's going to figure out the decision-making part of the game and become more consistent in his play, and he's going to rise on our board. It's already headed that way. I'm expecting in our November board that he's going to be a bit higher, maybe 10 spots higher, 5 spots higher, because he managed to convince more people in our team since then. But at the start of the season, he was just a try everything prospect. So every puck touch, he was attempting to dance at the line, spin off the defender and attack down. He was super aggressive defensively. So he's a really fun prospect, but it's just we have some questions about him. But I'm sure he's going to rise on many, many boards because NHL teams love these kinds of prospects. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to play and to develop, I think. So a bit kind of a Lev Shunov comparison.
Runway, usually, yeah.
Sorry, what you were saying?
Said players that usually have a lot of runway. NHL teams love that a lot.
Yeah, and he's pretty big, and he has the tools. I'm pretty sure.
And
he's settled in at 22. 22 for Elite Prospects. So,
and the other one were at 20 and 21, Oliver Savanto and Nikita Sherbakov. Those two, I'm not sure that they would continue to be riser for me. I said that in our meeting, not our meeting, but a podcast I did. I think we have them more in the right spot after a few more viewings. Like, I'm not sure they were. I wanted to push them higher, but maybe the team was right on these ones. Maybe they're more wait and see prospects. But I really like Oliver Savanto's early games because, again, he's a projectable center with a support game, passing game, great defensive details. He's big, so there's a lot going on. Kind of an Anton Lundell comp. And Nikita Sherbakov is a 6'5" defenseman playing in the He was playing in the KHL. Now he's more in the VHL, I think. The skating has to improve a bit, but he has the defensive details and flashes of offense and puck moving ability, like being able to retrieve pucks on the wall and move them up ice, on top of having this large range and mature play. So another prospect who I think NHL teams will really like. It's just that he's a bit of an unknown right now, and I think he has no point on the season unless he scored since
Has
our
1 point
last.
in the VHL.
Yeah, is the VHL,
Yeah.
and he's hard to search on Google. Like when you type his name, there are others players with the same name, so I always don't click on the right link. So I cannot check if he has a point right now. But a week ago, he was still scoreless, so that's a bit of an issue in the projection. Even if he's 6'5", you need to put up some numbers at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about your top three, because it's a little bit. It's the same prospects for everybody, but it's kind of flip-flopped for you. So it's Gavin McKenna, Stenberg, and then Verhoff. And I know that a lot of people saw the Frank Saravalli tweet where he said that some people think Verhoff could go number 1. And I had heard that and made a video on how, Verhoff and Stenberg are closer together than Verhoff and McKenna. I think that there's a gap. But can you talk a little bit about the top 3 there and why you guys took Stenberg over Verhoff?
It comes down to when in doubt, we usually pick the more dynamic forward. It's kind of a formula to get a bit more hits as the draft goes on, because they tend to. It's harder to. Let me rephrase this. You can pick top-end defensemen later in the draft, but it's harder to find your top creative forwards in the second round. So I would tend to target those forwards a bit more than those defensemen when they're pretty much equal in value. And we know Stenberg is a winger. He has his size is a bit average for the NHL, but everything else is there. The playmaking game is not equal to McKenna, but it's maybe just a level below. And he has all those mature habits. Like he's already playing in the SHL, and he's looking very like a veteran in the league. He's handling contact well. His defensive game is decent for a player of his age, and he's running the rush game and the playmaking game for them. So a lot going on for him, and he could make a really quick transition to the NHL as soon as next year, because he has enough of a mature build, but it's mostly the way he plays the game and the creativity. So I think he's a high potential scoring forward. With Verhoff, we had some question marks about the skating ability and what kind of player he's going to be at the next level. So we're not fully sure that he's going to be this elite offensive quarterback necessarily, but he's so projectable as a prospect that I fully understand why someone might look at his size and his production and his young age and the runway he has and just project him as the potential first overall caliber prospect. And I think that's perfectly legitimate, and we might end up moving him to 2 later on in the season. We're not convinced that there's actually a challenger for McKenna right now, even if he's not performing up to the super high expectations we had for him in the NCAA, because players take time in the league. We saw Macklin Celebrini play very good in his first games in the NCAA, but McKenna is regenerating more than him right now. It's just that the points have not come. But I anticipate that there's going to be a point explosion in the next month or not after, and this won't be a James Hagan situation where he just continues to tread water for the entire season. He has had the chances. It's just that it's not going at the same rate. And I know there are question marks about the defense and the physicality, but when you're looking at the kind of Patrick Kane elite playmaker level, those things don't really matter in the draft here, honestly. At least for me, I just look at the elite potential offense, and the rest will come to an extent.
Yeah, he does have to adapt anyway from the WHL to the NCAA. It takes a little bit of time. And I think a player that has that level of skills and that level of playmaking, it will happen whether we want it or not. So I'm not worried about it at all. And he's still a point per game player right now. It's not like he's 1 point in 6 games. He's still a point per game. It's just when you look at what Adam Fantilli did or something like that, you would expect probably a little bit more. But like you said, I think it's something is going to come pretty quickly.
Yeah, and to your point, like what Stenberg's doing in the SHL is just absolutely nuts. Yeah. I mean, 10 points in 12 games. I think that should be talked about a little more. I am just very surprised. I know Vigo Bjork, I think, had, off the top of my head, 74 points in 42 games in the J20 last year. And he only has 4 points in 11 games. And I know his frame 5'9", 5'10" on some lists, but, Ivar Stenberg is playing better. And I asked him this question. I actually just dropped my interview with Stenberg today, but it was like, you have 1 year left on your contract. Kind of what's the plan? And it kind of sounded like he might come to the NHL as soon as possible. Like, this is a guy that wants to play in the NHL as soon as possible. And next week, before we post this, he could sign a 2-year deal, like whatever it is. But I just feel like Ivar is going to come to the NHL as quickly as humanly possible. And some of the things for like him to improve on, I've actually seen him play better defensively, and in the SHL he needs to gain those minutes. So I'm really impressed with him, as well as Gavin McKenna. Artem Levchinov had 35 points in 38 games, and I know that makes so that's completely different. But Gavin McKenna at a point per game, I think that we need to slow down on he could fall to 2 or 3, because it's Gavin McKenna. Defenses are going to play him because he is Gavin McKenna. When he has time and space, the guy is so skilled. So I really did like that ranking when I saw McKenna, Stenberg, and Verhoff. I was pretty shocked about Ryan Lynn being at 4, even though he's so fun to watch. I mean, he's so offensively explosive too. He has 13 points in 12 games in the dub. Can you talk a little bit about Ryan Lynn, and is he in your top 5 personally?
No, and he's going to fall on the next board probably.
Mm-hmm.
This was an aggressive ranking because we thought he would take the next step offensively. So far, he's been really good, but he's kind of the same offensive player as he was last year. More someone who facilitates play, who has the skating to be a much more high event and taking control of shifts and manipulating defenders, but he's not really doing that all that much. He's more of someone who has great defensive details. I've heard questions about his defense, but to me, that's his main strength as a smaller player. Not necessarily the way he engages opponents, but the way he manages to angle and push them to the outside and kill passing lanes. And his details are really the foundation of his game. And then he has a pretty good puck moving ability. And we expected that he would take the next steps offensively. We might see that in the second half of the year. But if you're a smaller defenseman like he is, you really need to be special offensively more than defensively, because even if you're very, very good defensively, there's always going to be someone who's 6'5" and has twice your range, who's going to be much better than you are, just because he has that player has the physical gifts and you don't. So if Lynn doesn't end up taking that next step offensively, he's more going to be a player we're going to rank at 10, 11, 12 maybe. But right now, he's still one of our favorites prospects in the draft. I'm just giving you how our thoughts are evolving about him as we continue to watch him. So he was in my top 5. Now he's not. And there are other defensemen who are pushing way higher, like Chase Reed, who are going to rise in our next board, who provide some of the same elements, but have better tools. So those power defensemen, they can move up and down boards faster because their projection changes a lot based on if they add just one element or they don't have that element. So we expect more movements with him and maybe Xavier Villeneuve, who has looked really great though.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to cement his spot and become that first smaller defenseman on our board, I think.
And Chase Reed is kind of answering the questions around him from last season because of where he started and where he finished. Was it just a temporary thing? But it turns out it's not a temporary thing. He's still looking good. And Xavier Villeneuve, would you say that he's taken that extra step offensively this season?
Yeah, and honestly, he was so good last season that I wouldn't really mind if he just was about as good, but he's still figuring out even more plays that he can pull off. I'm taking this from Mitch Brown, but he was saying that Villeneuve was someone who in previous years was just using his skating to create. Like he would just move around and see what his movement would open and then take that lane or shoot on that. And now he's becoming better at mixing his skating with his hockey sense and really timing his moves, inviting pressure before being it. And so there's a lot of refinement in his offensive game as he goes on. So he's a super projectable power play quarterback. And the neutrals on defense is going to be probably a strength at the professional level. And just like Lane Hudson, the in-zone defense will always be more of a weakness because of physical limitations. But if you're so good at the offensive game and the neutrals on defense that you still end up controlling shifts. You're going to find a spot in the top 4. So I think he's a clear top 10 prospects for us because of the massive upside, and there is a higher floor than one might expect just because of the skating, honestly.
I think I would be extremely surprised if he was picked in the top 10. Like, it's
Yeah, me
so
too.
rare to see players of that size, especially that he's so light, right? That
Mhm.
it's very rare to see players that type taken in the top 10, but I think he's a top 10 talent all day long. And like you said, like the rush defense, middle zone defense is going to be great. And he's defending skating backward as opposed to Lane Hudson, who's defending skating forward all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's a good
he's a
thing.
better skater than Lane Hudson by
He's
quite
more
a lot,
explosive,
honestly.
yeah.
Hudson is getting really, really quick now, so it hides the poor mechanics sometimes.
He's
But
very shaky when he skates. He goes fast, but he's
because
he's
he's
moving
super
so
light.
much. It's very inefficient.
He's
Yeah,
a
so-
joystick.
exactly. So Villeneuve is a better skater on top of pulling the same moves. So this is getting Quinn Hughes levels to some extent. I'm not saying he's Quinn Hughes for now, but there are some parallels there. So very,
His
very
skating is not on the
entertaining.
same level, in my opinion, but I think
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah, in terms of
Good.
power, I agree with you.
And I wanted to ask about like the top player of the USHL. Obviously, we haven't seen him play, but Tynan Lawrence. Do you think because he is a center, it's going to help him during the draft? And what's your expectation for him as your projection?
We have some pretty big fans of him in our team, honestly. And it's really too bad that we can't see him play right now because I was really looking forward to watching him. Maybe the player I was looking forward to watch the most. I just have to wait and be patient. He looked a bit to me like draft -1 Macklin Celebrini in his USHL season, draft -1 too. He's not exactly the same player, but I found some of the same level of details. He's not a shutdown player, but he can play defense to a pretty good level. He's not a high-end rusher, but he can carry a puck through neutral zone and beat defenders and make passes. He's not a 6'3" power forward off the cycle, but he can handle that physical play and still make plays in the offensive zone. So he has a bit of everything, and the skating is going to be a high grade, and he has the hands to go with it and the shot. So a lot of interesting pieces. It's just that how will the glue hold, and is he going to become an even better version of himself this season? The fact that he's missing months of hockey now, it might not help him come out of the gates at full level. So we might have to wait. But because this draft is devoid of centers almost, I think he's going to be a challenge for the top 3 for NHL teams, at least. We don't tend to value centers and defensemen as much as other outlets. We do put a premium on that, but it's a small premium. So he might end up not necessarily in our top 5, but in terms of being the best center in the draft, I think he almost has that locked down even if he hasn't played, because the package is so interesting. There are other challengers, but he's the main one, and we know teams target centers, so he's going to rise, I think.
I think maybe because of his playoff last season at the end of the year, the way he played, like he's already cemented like at least a top 6, top 7 type of player. The size is average. He's not a big player, but he's not also like a small player. And like his performance in the playoffs kind of says it all. Right? He was the MVP if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And like if he comes back and plays to that same level, I think he's a lock for a top 5 pick because of that center position. So,
and he was the MVP on a team with Ivan Ryabkin, Vaslav Nesterso, who went 25th overall, who's an ambassador for elite prospects. And then you have guys like Luka Radijevich, and he was undrafted, which I was very surprised about. But like he was one of the top guys on a team loaded. So, I don't think that being in the USHL like is going to like hurt him at all, because the USHL has proved that they can produce a lot of great talents. And the thing about it is that you see a lot of these guys go from different leagues from the USHL and actually score a lot more after. So it's starting to become more defensive as well. So I feel like that's not kind of being talked about as much. But when some of these guys go there, like even Blake Zielinski, you see this guy and he has 8 points in 10 games, but I see that as very, very good in the USHL now, because the teams are queuing, like keening in on this guy. Like he's the talk of the town. So can you talk about what you thought of Blake Zelensky and what your projection is on him as well?
Yes, and you're right about the USHL. It's a kind of a different kind of league. Top players don't get the 18, 20 minutes that they get in the CHL sometimes, at forward even. It's more spread out. The style of play is different. And I'm not sure how to say this, but there's not, maybe, especially right now, there's maybe not as much playmaking talent surrounding these top prospects. So it's a bit harder for them to get the good puck touches to really perform and put up numbers. Zelensky, if he had someone who could feed him reliably with his shot, he would score a lot, I think. And that shot is clearly NHL caliber. I think it's the best part of his skill set. And he also has the ability to make plays too. We saw him with Extall at the Hinkla. I think they were paired together and they made some really nice plays. He's creative. He has that score mentality and he can really fire it past goalies. It's just a question of the package of surrounding that. He's below average in terms of NHL size. And his skating is also maybe not a clear strength right now. So, and also there's the issue of now, how do you project USHL players? Do you downgrade them because they're playing against weaker competition because all the top prospects left? Or do you say, like you said, they're playing in a tougher environment because they're not as much support, they're not getting as much minutes, the scoring rate is not as big. It's a bit of a question mark for us, and I think for many others this season, especially with the landscape changing. So I don't know what to do with Blake Zelensky. I really like his skill. It's just, where do we slot him on our board?
Yeah, that's really well put. And I wanted to ask you who your top player is in the OHL, because I asked Brock Otten, and this was about a month ago, and he said Chase Reed. And I was shocked because you have guys like Belchetz and Robrick, who I think you guys are right on Robrick. I think he is going to continue to fall at 10, and I haven't really seen anything down. Yeah. But can you tell me who your top OHL players?
I think it's a competition now between Chase Reed and Belchetz, so I would agree. I've been really surprised with Chase Reed. I did not expect such an evolution in one offseason because I had some big question marks about his hockey sense last season. And now, not that he's an elite thinker of the game, but they're not there anymore. And he has all the skills needed to become a top 4, top line defenseman. So we'll see where that debate ends up. But I prefer Ethan Belchetz. He's one of my favorite prospects in the draft. This guy has pretty much everything you want in a power forward except the high-end skating. And he gets around fine. I think his skating won't be an issue for a style of game in the NHL. As long as he builds enough speed in a straight line, he's going to be able to make his impact on the forecheck. And the playmaking game, it doesn't appear in every game he plays, but he has some insane flashes that I would call his playmaking elite even. Like it's a bit like Porter Martin last season. The flashes were not consistent, but we still thought his hockey sense was super high because of some specific passes that he managed, like knowing where teammates are about to skate and treading pucks under defenders, deceiving them. He's capable of all of this, and that's going to be a big help for his average skating, slightly below average, because he's going to be able to rely on this. And you can easily project him to a puck retriever role, someone who's going to go at loose pucks on the wall, move them to teammates, become super efficient at moving pucks from the back wall of the offensive zone to teammates in front too. And he can wreak havoc in front of the net. He's super mean and physical, like really mean. This is not a Porter Martin situation where his reputation is that he's physical when he's really not. Belchetz is super physical, so I don't know how much. It's going to be an interesting debate between him and Stenberg and Verhoff and Lawrence because some teams are going to love that profile, I'm sure, and they want this kind of player because it's pretty rare in the NHL. Someone who has skill, hockey sense, and meanness. So I really like him. I'd put him second overall if I was a bit more sure of certain things in his projection, but I think he's a contender for as high as second for us.
Yeah. And Chase Reed, to your point, in the USHL had 0 points and then just exploded in 2024, 2025. He is somebody, he also is going to Michigan State with Porter Martin, so that's kind of interesting there. But kind of Ethan Belchetz reminds me of like Porter Martin and Shane Vansagi if they were like mixed together.
Oh
Like-
yeah, that's just a
That's
good
good
way
mix.
to put it.
Yeah.
Both Flyers
Like, the-
prospects too.
Yeah. So he's going to be a Flyer. It's just going to happen. And then go to Michigan State with Chase Reed. No, I actually don't know if he's, but that's kind of who I
I think
thought.
he has better feet than a guy like Benzagi, though.
Yeah.
Benzagi's skating
Yeah.
is rough.
Really heavy.
Yeah, but not that Belchetz looks like a ballerina on the ice, but I think it's I think it's a touch better.
Do you think that if they were all like if like Porter Martone and Belchetz were on the board, like Ethan would probably go before him from last year?
That's a great question. I was a huge fan of Porter Martone, but I'd say yes, just because
Mhm.
they have the same kind of playmaking. Martone showed it a bit more than Belchetz, I think. I'd say similar hockey sense almost, and what wins out in the end is the insane physicality that Belchetz has. Like it's going to be a separating factor for him in the NHL. I'd pick him.
And the Spitfires are a wagon. I mean, like they're pretty good in the OHL. He's going to be allowed to use more of that skill that he's shown more because they're going to be up in games, I believe, and have more power play because like I'm big on him. I think that he can reach into that top 5 level. There's just so many good top 10. Like I was talking to NHL Draft Pros and Link, like which top 10 would you prefer right now, 2025 or 2026? And I was like, definitely 2026 in my opinion. Mark said it was, or NHL Draft Pro said it was 2025. But in your opinion, like right now, who do you think would win 2025 or 2026 for top 10?
Definitely 2026. It's early, and this can all change. My opinion could be different at the end of the season, but this draft has been so fun to scout, a lot more than the previous ones. Even 2023 had those elite talents at the top, but not as much depth. This one is a true draft where you have an elite number 1 overall player, potentially, and then a bunch of super high-end talents that follows. And it's not a big drop at any point for us right now. We're trying to fill the second round for our next board, and I'm a bit less enthusiastic than I was about this draft a few weeks ago, but I'm still very, very high on it. So I think it's an above-average class for sure, and the prospects are all super interesting and different, and it's a great class for a defenseman. If a team is looking for a defenseman, there's a bunch of options that could all go in different directions and have all high upside. A very interesting class, except if you're looking for a center. Then you're going to be maybe out of options rapidly. But apart from that, very, very fun.
One of the player I was a little bit sorry, Don.
No,
One
go
of the
ahead.
player I was a little bit surprised to see lower than I expected is Elton Hermanson, which you have at 25. What do you think
Yeah.
about him personally?
I have him even lower than this on my.
Oh yeah,
It's just that
not
I
going in
have
the
him
right direction.
Some on our team have him higher than this. I just see him as a great project right now, but I'm not sure what path he's going to take to the NHL. Right now, he performed well in his stint in the Hockey Allsvenskan. He has that shooting ability. He's a deceptive handler, and the skating is coming along. I'm just not sure what he's going to be at the end. A lot of interesting tools. It's just a projection that's a bit more uncertain for me. So the upside is there for maybe a top 9, middle 6 forward for me. I'm not sure about top 6, and because the certainty isn't as much there right now, he's a bit lower on my board. If I see him take a path that's going to be highly projectable to NHL, it's going to rise pretty quickly.
I have 2 more questions on this particular class, and I don't know what Blue Chip Prospect has, but I wanted to ask about JP Hurlbert because he is on an absolute tear in the WHL.
Oh, no.
What do you think of him, and is he going to sneak into that top 32 in the next release?
I wish I could avoid this question. I really, really don't see it with him at all.
Okay.
Like, is it prospect? I've struggled to even write reports on because I try to be positive enough in those reports, but I see so many red flags in his projections. So many, a collection. The skating ability, the It's below average, and projects as below average. He has the size concerns. The pace of play is really low. The way he operates on the ice, it's so junior. The way he scores, not all of his goals. Like, he has some playmaking elements, but he scores off loose pucks, off cheating for our offense from the defensive zone, like getting ahead of the play. But he can compensate for his bad for skating that way. So I'm really not the person to ask right now. There are more fans of him on our team, but I'm struggle to put him in our top 50 if it was not for the production. I always value production to an extent because I realize I'm flawed as an evaluator, and sometimes I just don't see it with the prospect. And if he scores a lot and he has enough flashes of skill, which he does, Hurlbert has a great shot, and he sees the ice a bit like Andrew Crystal did in his WHL games. He can play chess and move the puck around, create given goals. This is pretty good. So I see those elements.
I don't think he's as good as
every.
Crystal, though.
No,
Yeah,
I don't
sorry?
either.
Yeah, Crystal
What
is
did you say?
special.
I missed it. Sorry.
I said I don't think he's as good as Crystal, though. Crystal is
Oh,
special.
so you're also
His
not.
dynamic elements were
Are you a fan of JP Hurlbert?
no.
Okay,
No,
good.
I mean, I'm okay with him. I'm not like a necessarily a big fan, but he does project for 68 goals and 150 points. So.
Yeah, so you have to respect that, and you have to take this into account when you project a player and still take. I could not put him outside of my top 50 right now because the production is too great and those flashes of skill. I just think he's a very low chance, very high upside forward who's going to have to change a lot of parts of his game to score. And he's going to have to maintain that production for the entire season to really remain in a good spot on the draft. And I'm sure NHL teams are going to have a ton of concern about his game too.
When I used to watch Andrew Crystal, I used to get like goosebumps because it was more about just like the skill, and you can just see it more with JP. I don't see Andrew Crystal at all. I also was very high on the 2023 draft class. I thought it was like the greatest class of all time. I was in that hype basket where I was like, there's 45 first round picks, and I was like, I was listening into the hype a little bit, but I still believe in that class a lot, and I think it's only gotten better. But players like Andrew Crystal, I'm just very high on. I don't see Crystal with JP, but I am high with JP and what he's doing with Bem because, he was a Blackhawks prospect, and you're seeing how they have chemistry. It's kind of like Nick Lardis and Jake O'Brien on the power play, where it's like these goals are created by one guy, but Nick Lardis put up 70 goals. So it's like, and now he's leading the AHL in points. So it's like, how the heck am I supposed to evaluate this guy when all he does is scoring, but his B game is looking a little off there? Like, he's not going to have the puck on his stick for 18 minutes a night. It's usually going to be a minute 30 or 2 minutes. So what is he doing away from the puck? I don't know necessarily with JP because he always is just scoring. So it's going to be different. I don't think he's going to be able to put up the numbers he does in the AHL or when he's playing against men and more physicality, but it is a cool story. But I wanted to lighten the mood and ask you who your favorite prospect is in the entire class.
Oh, that's a good question. We already talked about Albert Smith, so I'm going to try and pick someone different. Belchetz I also love, so those are my two favorite. I had a really soft spot for Yegor Shilov when I watched him in the USHL. We ranked him pretty aggressively at 13th overall. He was not very good in the top Q prospects game, I heard. I did not watch this one, but he has had a pretty good season debut with Victoriaville, who's not... Victoriaville is not really a good team in the queue, but I anticipate that he's just going to become better and better as the months go by. If he can just add a bit more pace to his game, a bit more fire, he has pretty much everything else. The tools are all there. His defensive details are pretty good, and he sees the game at a higher level. He has moments where he's really also playing chess on the ice, moving defenders around, creating pockets of space for teammate, dropping the puck to them. He can make plays through defenders, dangle them if he wants. I feel like when he does take that motor step, when he does play with more energy, his skill is going to shine even more. And this draft, again, is not full of center. So Igor Shilov projects to be a center. If he can really take that next step and convince NHL scouts, I think he's going to become a pretty high pick in this draft because the package is pretty great.
I'm really happy that you brought him up because he was actually the player I was talking about when I was talking about USHL players, because last year he was a minus 30 and was not even close to a point per game in the USHL for Green Bay. He was forced to play on a team that was getting murdered in a lot of the games they were playing in, and it was kind of like Logan Hensler at Wisconsin. You do not put him with your strengths, and in the QMJHL it's a lot more tailored to what he does well and a lot of the skilled players, and it leans more to, there is a little bit of more openings and more space because it's not just it's not as defensive in my opinion as the USHL, so it really helped him. So it is nice that we get to see him play in the USHL on a team that was not very good, and he had to play in a position that he didn't want to, and then you see him take that jump in a place where it's tailored to his success. So he is a really good one. I'm excited to see what he does at Boston University because he's going there in 2026, and I really like that you have him as high because he's going to be very high when Draft Prospects Hockey releases their rankings on elite prospects in the next coming weeks. So I really do like that. The blue chip, I wanted to ask you too, like what you thought about him, because he's a prospect that I've circled on my radar. Like, this is a guy that I think is top 15 the whole year.
I feel a little bit of what David said is basically what I think too, in the sense that what he's missing is the pace. And so sometimes it's pace with his feet, sometimes it's attacking with aggressivity, sometimes it's thinking the game a little bit faster. Like, it depends from game to game, but like you said, that minus 30 from last season, it's so not representative of the player that he is defensively, because he's really he's on top of his game defensively. So I don't see that as I see it as a strength for the next level. So I don't minus 30. If you just look at the numbers, it wouldn't look great. But also in terms of production, he does have 19 points in 10 games. Is that it? Yeah, I think so. Huh? So it's good production. He's skilled. He sees the ice well. So it's a player that I like. I'm not sure if I have him in my top 16 yet, but I think he's closing in.
And that minus 30 from last year was more indicative of the team he was on rather than what he was doing. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. But he was forced to play in a spot. But I wanted to transition. I think that was the last question I had. I don't know if you have any more.
I have 2 questions that I wanted to ask. Okay. And they're basic question more for the people who are going to be watching this. First, if you think of McKenna, do you think McKenna is that type of franchise player, not generational player, but let's say franchise player in the same vein as player like Patrick Kane or Pasternak or Kucherov? Maybe not like Kucherov, because Kucherov is a different level of
Patrick Kane was too.
Yeah, I know, but Kucherov is Kucherov. It's something else in my opinion. But I mean, do you see him as that type of player or a level under that? Or
yeah, I think you could reach those heights. I'll admit I haven't watched McKenna as much as some other players, some other scouts on our team. When there's a clear cut number one, I do watch a few games, but then I move on to the rest of the class. So he plays a unique style of game, but he's so good at the way he plays that style of game, which is elite playmaking, making plays to everyone on the ice, using all layers of the attack, deceiving everyone, and the stick handling skills to back that kind of game up. I think no matter where he plays in the NHL, that NHL team is going to put him on their first line and adapt their system on the power play and the way they operate on that first line to him. So even if he has some physical weaknesses and the defensive game won't ever be a strength, I doubt it, honestly, with the way he approaches the game right now, or it might. Some of these players, elite talents, tend to figure out other parts of their game at a faster rate than other ones, but it's more safer to project that he's going to remain a lot more offensive than defensive. So yeah, a bit like Patrick Kane in his great days, he would just play his own game on the ice and everyone else would adapt, and he would adapt to his teammates to an extent, but they would just give him the teammates that would make his style of play work. And I think he's going to be good enough to receive that kind of opportunity from NHL teams. And when you get that, it's a lot easier to pick up points and dominate. So yeah, I think he has everything to really become this level of player.
Maybe not like starting.
Maybe not like exactly Patrick Kane at his most dominant days. That's a bit hefty expectations to put on a player, but he's heading toward that, I think.
And if you were starting your team and you could pick any one of these three players, like who would it be? Demidov, McKenna, or Stenberg?
It would be McKenna, but I think he's similar to
Okay.
Demidov in some ways. The way he operates on the ice and playing a different kind of game than everyone else, they have those similarities. And I'm very high on Demidov, obviously.
And my last question for this draft is, it's not even about this draft. If you had to choose between the two cousins, Bedard or McKenna, who do you think is the higher end prospect or the most elite prospect of the two?
I'm going to steal an answer from someone else because we just discussed this with prospects. And
Oh, yeah?
Mitch Brown said that he thinks Connor Bedard was a better prospect than McKenna at many stages of their development. A more complete player, could make plays in different ways. McKenna is really focused on his style of delay game and cutting side and using teammates all around him. Bedard could do it more himself, and he has the elite shooting that we have yet to see really at the NHL level, but it's there in his arsenal. McKenna is more one-dimensional than Connor Bedard, but he's not. But that dimension, hard word to pronounce, is so elite that it's going to carry his whole game, I think. McKenna, that is.
All right, let's get to the prospect pools. And they just came out on Elite Prospects in September, the prospect pools. I always love this because it's so fun and you guys do a terrific job. So I wanted to ask you about, was there any prospect pool that you saw there that was kind of a surprise for you that was in the top 5 that you thought either should be in there or you were kind of shocked that was there?
The Islanders made a really big jump from I don't remember where they were the last season. They were at number 2 overall because we decided a long time ago to weight elite prospects a lot more than even normal A-level and B-level prospects. We don't care about depth as much. We want franchise changing players. So that's why you see Matthew Schaefer carry that prospect pool all the way to number 2. And it looks like a good call right now because he's so amazing that honestly he could have been number 1 ahead of maybe not. Number 1 is the Sharks, and they just drafted Misa, who's going to be pretty good, and they have so much depth. But the Islanders, we were surprised that every time we tried to debate the prospects pool, they were always winning and rising in the ranks all the way to number 2. Number 3, we had Utah, which is was a bit of a surprise to everyone, but we just love their drafting. They're drafting a lot of our favorite prospects, and so they end up having a lot of prospects we value super high, and that carries them up the list, of course, because it's our opinion of those prospects pool. So if we like your prospects more, you're going to rise. It's a bit biased that way, but it's our work. So I'd say these two, number 2 and 3, we did not expect going in that they would be this high.
And so, like, can you talk to me about, like, the Blackhawks prospect pool kind of versus, like, when you look at the kind of players that they drafted, Frondell, I know, was kind of lower on elite prospects, and I think that was one of the reasons they might not have been over Utah. But can you can you talk about, like, their prospect pool and what you saw in the first round of the draft? Because they drafted a lot of bigger prospects, like, in terms of height. 2'6" guys, and then Frondell. So can you talk about the Blackhawks prospect pool?
Yeah. We really like their prospect pool, and they could have been higher because honestly, those ranked from 2 to like 6, we debated them a lot, and we changed the order a lot too. We just ended up valuing some prospects that have more potential play driving ability. I think that comes to this. The Hawks have really targeted certain types of prospects in every draft. They wanted this type of prospect in this draft, this type of prospect in this draft. And we do feel, and we said this a few times, they left some value on the table in some of those picks, according to us. Like, honestly, our view of Frondell is a bit of an island right now. We see him more as a complementary scorer in the top 6, or if he does end up as a center, someone who's more defensive, who can shut down a bit like Anton Lundell more than a high-end play driver. If he's on the wing, he would be a great complement to Bedard or Nazar, but it's that word, complement. We want prospects who on their own can really influence the course of the game. If you're a great complement, you can be better than a play driver, but it's just that you always depend on the right fit through your career. So just the fact that we don't value the Hawks prospects as much as the organization does, of course. Dropped them a bit on our list, but they could have been number 2. They could have been number 3. They have a ton of our favorites, and they drafted a ton of our favorites previously too. Like Oliver Moore, we've been super high on him for a while, and it's looking pretty good right now in the AHL so far. Nestrusil was one of our favorite prospects in his draft. We really like Sam Rinzel. We ranked him too low, but there was a lot of love for on our team for him. So they have a bunch of prospects that we really like. It's just at the top 2 one, Frundell and Levshunov. Frundell, we just didn't like him as much as they did. And Levshunov has had a difficult time adjusting and developing in professional hockey right now. So if he was taking more steps forward, probably that would have been enough for their prospect pool to move up to 2, because he would be on this clear top line defenseman track. And I really, really like Levshunov. He's one of my favorite prospects in all drafts. I love watching this guy because he's chaotic, and you see high-end flashes of potential, and I love these prospects because there's always a bit of a puzzle, but he's still a puzzle 2 years after his draft. So we'll see where this ends up, and this is dropping his certainty a bit. So we'll see.
I tweeted out that Artem Levshunov is an experience, but he's Blackhawks fans' experience. Like, when you watch the guy play, you can see the talent oozing, but then you're like, this guy doesn't know how to play hockey sometimes. Like, he just gets in his head, and it's just that. If he played free, the guy's a stout defenseman, definitely maybe a top pair defenseman, but I don't know if he necessarily needs to be. With Sam Rinzel's, like, he can be eased in to be a top 4 defenseman, and I think it's going to help out Artie because he doesn't need to necessarily be a top pair right-handed defenseman. I wanted to ask you about Nick Lardis and Roman Kanserov. Those are 2 guys that are kind of going either over the radar or talked about kind of a little too much based on some people. I know Blackhawks organization only talks about him, but Kanserov doesn't really is not talked about as much on some of these lists. So can you talk about those 2 prospects?
Who was the first one? Sorry, I lost audio at the wrong moment. Lardis.
Nick Lardis, yeah. Roman Kanserov.
yeah, Nick Lardis. They are just outlier profiles, and they look very good as outlier profiles, especially Lardis. I like a bit more than Kanserov. Lardis has that high-end shot. He's super good at positioning himself in the offensive zone, and the speed is great. They drafted a bunch of speedy players, and he's one of them. So there's enough there to project him to a potentially top 6 power play 1 role. It's just that now the Blackhawks have a lot of similar players in their top 6. Their top 2 centers are Bedard and Nazar. Do they want Nick Lardis, who's 5'11", not a very physical player, next to them? Do they want Kanserov there? I'm not sure how the team fit, how it's going to work out. Even on a third line, you're going to have 3 lines with a similar offensive, smaller identity. So there might be some fitting problem there. And because of their size, the way they play, they might not have the easiest path to the NHL. Lardis has the speed, so I think he could work, if not for the Hawks, as a trade ship potentially, or as someone who just accelerates the power play and becomes a specialist because he can score from all around the offensive zone. Roman Kanserov, I don't know him as much as other members of our team like Dylan Griffin, who watch him all the time. It's just that his defensive details and also the physical game are a bit of a question mark. He's another speedy, open ice player who's very good at playing off teammates and positioning without having necessarily the same shot as Lardis. So it's just fit and NHL projectability. I keep talking about this in every prospect, but we value 2 things. We value upside, and that pushes players up list. And we also value the chance of reaching that upside. Not as much, but it's a pretty big factor still. So if you have a lower chance of hitting that upside, you're going to be lower on our rankings, even if that upside is pretty great. So that explains why we have some more doubts and why those players are not in our top 100 drafted prospect list or lower on them, or not in our top under 23 prospects list, and lower in the Hawks prospect pool. But it doesn't mean that we're right. Maybe these guys do figure out.
And my last question is just Frank Nazar. If I guess I have two questions because one's a follow-up, but can you tell me about your opinion on Frank Nazar?
He was one of my favorite prospects to watch for a while. He was almost injured for a full year, I think, and he was behind his development.
Yeah.
And I think some people forgot how good he was, even if he was not scoring at the super high-end rate in the NCAA. When you watched him, that he was still a great play driver. And what separates him from other prospects of his type is that he's super inside driven. So even if he's small, he's always attacking the middle and creating from the middle. And he's a bit like Matthew Schaefer. He's very fearless. He doesn't really care about facing bigger defenders. So that package ability, high in playmaking, good supporting game, high in speed and inside driven, some physical skills. It was always a very enticing NHL package, even if his development wasn't trending to where he is now. When you put him in good spots in the NHL, you see his talent. And I'm really thankful for the Blackhawks to have drafted him, because I think if he ended up in a different organization, blocked in the top 6 role, cannot access one of those roles, I think the story would have been very different with him. Maybe stuck in the AHL for another season, and he's not finding that spot because other bigger players are showing more in those top 6 role. He's not beating veterans. So I think he also had the right path forward in that organization, and now he's showing his talents, and he's allowed to develop in his role too, and that he might not have gotten this somewhere else, but now that they place their chips on him, I think he's going to become a top 6 center for sure, or at least someone who can drive a top 6 line for years to come. Hopefully his great start to the season continues.
Okay, and my last question is a start bench cut. So 3 players, we have Frank Nazar, Will Smith, and Yurov Slavkovsky.
Start bench cut. Easy. This is a very easy question. I would start Frank Nazar. I'm going all in on him. I know Slavkovsky was ranked super high, but you're talking about one of my favorite prospects ever. So I have some kind of personal bias for Frank Nazar, and I think he's a better play driver than Slavkovsky, even if he's not as unique of a skill set. If I was in charge of an NHL team, maybe I think more about this, but this is my on the spot answer. And Will Smith, like, this is not a secret for anyone. I think I've not been really a fan of his play at any point in his career. I still respect the skill, but you see, even now in his, I don't know how many years post-draft, he's playing next to Celebrini a lot of games, and he's picking up points, but is he going to be a player who you can keep in this top line spot while he doesn't provide defensive ability or puck retrieving skills next to someone who's going to match up against the top lines for most of his career? He's someone who is very good at picking up points in different ways with his playmaking, but doesn't contribute enough to wins to really keep that spot over the long run. So this is my question with Will Smith. I take the under on him because that's always what I've been doing with him. But I do respect his skill, and I made videos on his playmaking ability. Like, he has some awesome moments. It's just he really needs to round out his game, or it won't be as fun in the Sharks, I think, for the next couple of years if he doesn't.
Okay, with that said, I know we ended on Sharks and Hawks. Spencer Knight or Askarov?
I'm really not a goalie person. Who has the better save percentage right now? This is going to be my answer. You should really ask
Spencer
someone.
Knight is 937, and Askarov is 838 on the top of my head.
Yeah. Spencer Knight, from what I know about goalies, which is very little, like, this is purely based on not much. I think Spencer Knight is a more technical goalie with a more consistent form. Askarov is more of a entertaining goalie.
Athletic.
Athletic. Yeah, that's the right
That's
word.
how we describe them, like Dobich.
This is
Athletic.
So I'd pick Spencer Knight, just from what I've heard and read in our discussions in the EP chat, but it's really, really close. They're both high-end goalies, and with goalies, you really never truly know until they're like 27, 28, 29, sometimes 30. So this could change a lot, but yeah. And sure, from a total newbie at watching goalies.
So since Anthony took all the time, I don't have a lot of questions for you. But my first question is, well, basically we know the Canadians they drafted Alex Zeroski in the second round because they traded their 16 and 17 pick for Noah Dobson. But is Alex Zeroski for real? Because like he's almost a point per game in the KHL. Another goal like yesterday, I think. Yeah, I think yesterday he had another goal, so he's like 8 points in 9 games in the KHL. So what do you think?
I have yet to sit down and watch his KHL tape. I
Okay.
will do this for sure, and it's a quick watch because he's playing like 4 minutes and still
Well,
scoring.
he had some good games, more time at the beginning, and yeah, but the last few ones.
It's very weird how they're treating young players in the KHL because this is someone who's clearly making them win, and they're still not playing him as much. And we saw that with Demidov before. Zeroski was really a boom or bust prospect, and I think he's heading toward more boom than bust. And I regret slotting him as low as we did on our board because we were first to put him on our board in like December, and Dylan was a super great fan of him. We just weren't aggressive enough with our ranking. So yes, I'd say he's trending toward being real, but I have yet to watch this game. But just having this kind of production in limited minutes in the KHL is a super great sign. So that alone is enough to make me think, yeah, we probably ranked this guy too low, even though we knew about him and we watched him a lot. It's just that in his draft year, the skating ability and the decision making were two big question marks, but he was a very weak player who was just in his first steps in really organized hockey. So it was a very hard projection. If you were all in on upside and not looking at certainty at all, you put him super high on your list. If you took into account the fact that he might not become anything because the question marks were too big, you slotted him a bit lower on your list. And I think this could have been a mistake on our part. We'll see how it plays out, and after I watch him, if I change my opinion.
Yes, same for me. He's been going up my list since like the first time I was introduced to him was by Simon at Elite Prospects. Simon from Brésil-Lagasse.
Yep.
Talked to me about it when we went to the US to watch James Higgins in Vermont. And after that, every time I watched him, I was like, this guy is really good. He has really, really good skills, very good vision. He gets to the net, but it was the MHL. And after that, in the playoff, it was a complete different game. And then when you go watch the tape from this season, I think you will be impressed by like the feet are better, but they're not necessarily that much better. They still project as average at best for the NHL. But it's the way he gets to the net and the way he uses his hands to deceive and make pass to the slot, and he's something. Yeah, I was not expecting that just straight out the bat after being drafted like 34th overall just a couple months ago, but he's really good. Another player, I don't know if you watched him too, Philip Eriksson is kind of following the same path as Oliver Kapanen. Now I think he's over a point per game in the SHL right now. Now he's 20, but he's going to turn 21 like in November or something like that. So do you think he's an NHL player, or do you think he has a role on the team at some point? Or?
I'll be honest, I haven't watched him in a while, so I cannot really answer this question. We have some reports on him, even recent ones, but you should just go look at the Elite Prospects page because he's not on my radar enough for me to focus on him. I have too many prospects to watch right now.
I understand.
Instead of your question, I want to add something about Zeroski. Sorry for not being able to answer. There's another player in this draft that reminds me of him, and it's Jackson Cover. Have you watched him? No. He's someone you should really take a look at because, according to Mitch Brown, he always knows the backstory of prospects. I'm not as good as him on this. 5 years ago, he was playing roller hockey, not even ice hockey. So it's just been 5 years that he's been on the ice controlling really a puck, and he's playing for the London Knights right now. He was already good in his 3 games last season. He picked up 2 points in a reduced role. This season, he's again playing in a reduced role, 6 points in 9 games, but he has insane flashes of skill. This is someone who really understands the game. We can manipulate defenders, can make plays through them, and he works hard still. And you see, with Zeroski, I think the mistakes we might have made is that there was a lot of runway with him, and there's still a lot of runway because of his background, his weaker frame. And Jackson Cover has the same kind of element: weaker frame, a lot of runway because of his background, insane level of skill, handling skill especially, and he's a 6'2" player. Someone to watch if you're listening to this and want a potential wild card. Someone who could rise a lot if he does get a bigger role with London. And with London, there's always these kinds of players who are stuck in middle 6 roles, who don't flash a lot in their draft year, and then they break out in the year following. He could be a candidate for this.
It's the right organization to draft a player with skills out of, because you know that he's probably playing middle 6 minutes because they always play their older players on the top lines and the power play. And at some point next year when they're gone or something like that, well, he's going to get the top line minute in the first power play and then he's going to explode. It's always like that with London.
Probably.
So. All right. And last question for me. Do you have any carte cachée? How do you say that in English?
Sleepers.
Yeah, any sleeper for the Habs prospects?
Inside the system? Probably. Let me just look at the list. Someone we like more than most.
I know you were high on Papanicus last year, but now he's not.
It's the one that's coming to mind. I was looking if it was another even lower drafted prospect that I could use for this question, but it's really Papanicus, I think. Looking the full list. I haven't looked at his scoring this season. Do you know if he's putting up numbers?
Play. He has mononucleosis.
Oh, he just started playing. I thought he was back on the ice. He has just 2 points in 3 games, but he should be playing a bigger role.
He started back? Okay, I was not even aware that he started back.
He just started, I think last weekend, so it's normal that you're not aware. He should be playing as their first-line center this season. This is a player who has defensive details. He's a big player. He's 6'5", and he has enough skating ability to play in the NHL, and he flashes higher-end playmaking ability. So he can play off teammates very well, play inside the system. He's responsible. So, sorry. He's an easy bottom 6 projection. There's a bit of a boom potential with him too. We ranked him, I think, somewhere in the 40s on our board. The Habs got him at 69. We were surprised that not more teams were targeting him. He didn't score a lot in his draft year, just 19 points in 32 games with Kelowna and 24 points in 39 games with Spokane. But he wasn't used in top roles, and he's a large player still figuring out his game. These players take more time to develop. He could be someone who really booms this season. Give him a bit of time if he's coming out of an illness, so it might take him some time to ramp up. But in the second half, look for him to really explode offensively, I think.
I'll ask you one last one for the Habs fan inside of me. After all the injuries and all the missed time in different seasons, what do you think is the best case scenario for a guy like David Reinbacher?
It's really unfortunate because I think if everything went well with his development, if he wasn't injured, this would have been the season where he really debuted with the Habs and would have been in their top 4. There's not a lot of room right now in their top 4 anyway. So you have this injured player who's not developing as fast as he should be. And now the team is really filling out to push toward a consistent playoff spots through the years. I'm not sure where it's going to end up. His offensive play hasn't really developed. He can still activate in the play and play off teammates and jump in gaps and participate somewhat offensively, but he's not a great puck mover and he's not a playmaker at the offensive line. So he has to develop into a kind of another Caden Goalie and really focus on his shutdown play and at the AHL level and stay healthy. He probably has some issues with his mechanics or something that keeps having those injuries reoccur in the way they
Right.
do. So I'm not really optimistic about him. The good news is that even if he doesn't really figure it out and becomes just a bottom pairing guy who can help the team by insulating others, they have enough prospects and enough high-end defensemen now that it doesn't really matter. And you can't hit on every prospect. It's just not possible. He's not a miss. He's far from it, but it's not looking really as good as it was a few years ago. We ranked him in our top 10. We really like Reinbacher. It's just that injuries are a problem for development.
Yeah, the defense part of his game is always going to be the, his strength. It's not obviously right now. You look at the puck moving, like you said, it's a bit of a weakness when he retrieves puck and he tries to move it forward. He just takes sometimes so much time to move the puck that they're closing in on him on the forecheck, and then he gets stuck along the wall, and then nothing happens. So I think there's a lot of work. I think there's still potential for a top 4 guy. Not that there is place for him right now, but maybe at some point. But yeah, not the most optimistic either. I'm trying to be, but sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to merge the Habs and Hawks right now so that people at home could leave with this. But if you could take, and I want Blue Chip Prospects' opinion on this too, if you could rather have Artem Levshunov or David Reinbacher, who would you have?
Levshunov for sure. Not even a question for me. Just because, first, again, I'm biased because I really love watching Levshunov, but just purely as a prospect evaluator, Levshunov is a playmaker. Reinbacher has never really been that much of a playmaker, really. It's something that could have been developed in this game because he had the skating ability and the desire to make plays still in his draft year. Like he was trying those things. Levshunov just doesn't care. He's super confident, and it's almost a skill, not being aware of your limitations sometimes, because you keep trying plays and you figure out where you really stand with your skill and how you can influence the game. And he's when you watch him right now, he's playing limited minutes with the Hawks, but even in his 13, 11 minutes, he still makes those hard activations up the ice. Like he wants to lead the team and push the offense, and he has those deceptive qualities. He's pretty aware as a quarterback too, and the shot is really booming. None of those skills are really consistent. That's his issue with him. Reinbacher is much more of a consistent force, and you know what you're going to get every shift, every time you drop him on the ice. Levshunov, you have no idea. It's chaotic, but project like 4 years, 4 years down the line, and I think he's going to have figured out how he can best influence the game and the risk and reward part of the game. He's for sure going to figure out at some point, to an extent, and become more valuable, I think, than Reinbacher, just because the tools are even better and he has more of a playmaking mind and he can play a shutdown game too.
Or maybe it's Korchinski 2.0.
Yeah, maybe, but that would be really surprising because the issue with Korchinski.
Wow,
I was not a fan of Korchinski in his draft here, so this is not too surprising to me. But the issue with him right now is that he doesn't have any role on that team. He won't be a power play quarterback. There are better ones than him, and he can't play a shutdown game like Rinzel and Levshunov and Vlasic. So what does he become, honestly?
I remember, I think it was your video on Elite Prospect where you kept talking about how his only move was spinning back at the blue line and he didn't even do it well.
Yeah. People could call him a high-end. We could go on a tangent on this. People call him an elite skater, and in some aspects, it's a bit of the same situation as Lane Hudson. In some aspects of his skating, it's really elite. He can spin like very, very smoothly, and he's very agile in the way he's in his own way. But there are some mechanical limitations in his skating that prevent him from being effective defensively and in some changes of direction out of stop. And those things matter even more than straight speed. Like when you question skating, it's not because that player won't be able to speed to pick up speed at the NHL level. Everyone is speedy at the NHL level. It's really the mechanics, the agility, the way they change direction, and the way they mirror footworks of the opponents. And Kucherov. I'm getting tired. The defenseman we're talking about right now is a struggle to do this even at the WHL level. So his projection was always all offense, and he lost a bit of confidence, I think, over the years. So now maybe a new organization is going to be the play for him. We'll see where he ends up.
Yeah, minus 39 and 40 and 5 for you. We'll do that at the NHL level. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode. I think you've been awesome. I just want to get a moment for you to kind of talk about what elite prospects and you have coming up, and if there's anywhere you want people to follow you and some upcoming things.
Yeah, my Twitter is David _Louis, my name, but without the hyphen. It's the bar down. And I do most of the videos on Elite Prospect channel, a lot of prospects breakdown, where I just pick games, pick some most interesting shifts, and I break those down. My next one is going to be on Harrison Brunicky, who's been very, very fun to watch at the NHL level.
Yeah.
I will write a piece soon on where I rank all the rookie NHL defensemen, their performance, how I anticipate they're going to evolve over the coming months. So I review all 11 main ones, and we're going to release our next draft boards in November, and a bunch of other rankings that we have coming up that I think are going to be really interesting. So you should subscribe to Elite Prospects Premium. We have a bunch of search function and a lot of cool things that we provide too with this. And if you're interested in prospect talks, we now cover even minor leagues. So U16, U15, we have a bunch of we cover a lot of prospects now. Yeah. So if you're interested in this, you should come read our work.
Cool. In your prospect, your defenseman rookie ranking, do you like Simashev? Just let me know.
He's down the list, unfortunately. Oh, yeah? I'm a fan of Simashev, but I think he can be better than what he's showing right now at the NHL level. The offensive confidence is not there. He's very good defensively, but he's playing limited minutes and just trying to not make mistakes. So right now he's down the list, but he's someone who we ranked super high on our last drafted prospect list, and we really believe in. So I'm sure he's going to figure it out. It's just that other players like Nikishin have more experience than him. They're older, even they've played both in the KHL, and some other prospects are more inherently confident in their abilities, so they're showing more right now, like Brunicky. So that's just what the ranking is based on, how they've been performing right now, and how I anticipate they're going to evolve in the coming months. So he's down the list, but a player I like more than some of the players I ranked ahead, if that makes sense.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, David. Thank you for your time. And please, people, take the time to like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do, all the YouTube things. Thank you very much. Have a good evening or day or night.
See ya. Bye. Thank you.